There is a reporter by the name of Jeremy Lee in Maui, Lahaina, kind of giving us details, and I think he's right where a lot of us are at about how exactly did all of this happen? How do you put roadblocks? How are there people redirecting people to a different area where it's more congested, where clearly it was a death trap overall? There was a man who was interviewed by News Nation who basically talked about how he talked to his mother.
She said that 911 said just follow traffic. The traffic and where they were directing us was basically where the fire was going to end up. You could see the fire was getting pushed towards the ocean and pushed north, and that's where we were getting pushed. They were basically telling us where to go. Everything was blocked by police to go south, the safe way. So they basically, and it's not the police fault. They didn't know that the fire was going on. They're blocking the roads for the telephone poles that were down, or the power lines that were down.
And it's interesting because this man who's being interviewed says it's not the police's fault. You know, they didn't know what they were doing. I don't think anybody knew what they were doing, right? I think he said it best when he said that everybody was pigeonholed to this situation.
Basically blocked by police, and it pigeonholed and forced us down into Lahaina town on Front Street, which is an absolute death trap.
So bottom line, right when we needed people to step up in their role to manage the situation, it was a complete failure. Everything was a complete failure. And some stuff could have been prevented. And this is why I say we're in our every right to ask questions and wonder what happened.
And I'm at that critical intersection where the public is asking which roads were closed, which roads were not, in the hours of 4 and 5 p.m. on August the 8th.
How was there a failure in communication? Let's just say, let's give everybody the benefit of the doubt for a minute. Let's just say that. Let's say that there's a failure in communication in this situation. Even if that's the case, even if, say, that there was no sirens, there was no texting because there are no messages because of, you know, whatever outages might have been happening because of the fires. Even if that is the case, at the very basic, how come redirecting people away from the fire wasn't done? And it's taken me, even though this has been put out there, and shout out to Cinema Shogun because he's been very good about putting this information out there and putting the pieces together. I'm a little late to this because I'm reviewing things as they're coming, but shout out to him and his channels in the description box so you guys can check them out. But
is that early on in this story, early on in this situation, the police chief was denying that any of this ever happened. The police chief lied and said that there were no roadblocks. And then the police chief started, you know, attacking YouTubers and social media content creators. He claimed that me and everyone else, we're all just lying. We're all lying about the roadblocks. He said that no one should believe anything that we are saying online and that people should only believe the information provided to them directly from the police chief or the mayor or other forms of government.
Because the people on social media weren't wrong about the roadblocks. You have local media there, locals, like Jeremy Lee, saying that these roadblocks were there. When I first started reporting on this story, people were saying there's no roadblocks. Y'all were believing the hype over there too. It's like, riddle me this, when this is life and death, when this is a crisis.
Now, this is where I am. This is Keawe Street that you see. It leads up to the bypass. We know that at 3:30 p.m., the bypass was closed down. Now, Keawe Street going down leads into the Cannery Mall. You have the Cannery Mall, and then across the street on Honoapilani Highway, which runs northbound, of course, you have Lahaina Gateway. So again, we're looking at Honoapilani Highway as the primary exit from Lahaina town. We do know that there were downed power lines and that at some point, Honoapilani Highway was closed. I have spoken to survivors who told me they were directed down Keawe Street and into the cannery. Now, the only way to get out of the Cannery Mall on the other side is Front Street. leading to more congestion and backup. I did talk to the police chief. You're going to hear from him in just a moment. And I asked him specifically about Keawe Street because according to those survivors, the evacuees, traffic was directed exactly down here where you see the roadblock right now and the National Guard standing by, funneled into the Cannery Mall. And of course, the other end is Front Street, which we know was backed up terribly in those critical hours.
My thought process is like, how is it that with all these professionals that we have, even at the very basic, to just come together and say, you know what, we got to direct people on this side because of this. But then this side is the inferno too. Who decided what? Who decided how? And why that direction? None of it makes sense. And this is why it lends itself for people to question everybody's intentions. I certainly do.
Have a listen to what the police chief said when I asked him about road closures and whether we would get more information about how fire and the police department were communicating on that day.
We want to get people out. And so let me answer it like this. There is going to be a very detailed long after action. It might be the longest after action that's ever been. Every data point is going to be scrubbed and looked at and meticulously gone through.
There could be an after action hour report on all of this. That's fine. What I would like to see is an independent audit of all of this. Independent of these people, right? Somebody that is auditing all this information and is able to trace back communications, where it happened, where they failed, where they could have done something different. But like I said, it needs to be independent of these officials.
We're actively trying to recover people. It's our community. It's our people too. And so I say that is, let us right now do what we need to do and let the after action do what it needs to do. But I can tell you that we did everything we can to make sure that we preserve life and protect each other. And so we've already found that some of the false reports on the direction of travel were not correct. We were getting people out of the area. We were forcing people not to go at a certain point down Front Street because it had already gotten too late. And so the efforts were to get people away from the fire and away from the danger.
They were directed down Keawe Street.
They were not directed toward the danger.
So Jeremy's saying that Keawe Street was the dangerous area. He's saying that they were not, the chief is saying they weren't directed towards danger, but that's not what the witnesses are saying. So when I'm saying that I question everybody's intent, it's because I do. And we should all be concerned.
I can tell you, and I agree with the chief, I'm happy to answer all these questions when the right time comes, which is when the after action and investigation comes about, what we knew when we knew it. You folks know a lot more information today than we knew on that day. Everybody's taking information after the fact and applying it to then and asking how come we didn't know back then what we know today, because the answer is we didn't know back then what we know today.
And that was the mayor responding to my question also about the live interview that the mayor gave with KITV4 in the 6 p.m. hour at 6:03 p.m. on Tuesday the 8th. People had already fled into the water to escape the flames a half hour earlier at 5:30. The mayor acknowledging the gap in receiving real-time information. Now back here at Keawe Street where I am standing, this is what I asked the police chief about. You heard him say we did not direct people, we directed people away from danger, but the question is, did they direct people into a traffic bottleneck? We will continue to follow this story because people have been asking, messaging me. They want to know answers. We're going to talk to more survivors, and we did put out a call for more video of blockades and more video of the situation as it unfolded.
Particularly this, it just makes me wonder, and it leads itself for people to, have these conclusions about intent. If the goal was to preserve life, even after communication lines were down, even after no sirens, even after no text messages, even after no warning, if the goal was to preserve life, then why wasn't there enough done to do that? With these officers, at the very basic, coming together, Making sure that even if you have a roadblock, you're telling people, okay, come this way. This is where we're going. Don't go that way. Like, there was no communication. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.